Hello, everyone. We're just gonna wait for our guests to join and more people to tune in. We're just gonna get started in a few minutes. Let's see what happens. It's always hard to think of things to start off with when it comes to this. Hi, Kiki. Hi, Lawrence. I see you. It's sunny out here in Oregon for like the first time in like ever. So that's a good thing. We're just waiting for Nikau to join and then we can get started. Yeah. So oh, and then another Kiki joined. Both Kikis are here. Hi. Let's wait and see when Nikau's gonna join. I really do feel like I should play like trivia on this or something. I don't know, Kiki. I don't know what to do when this starts. Is anybody watching any good shows right now? I don't know. Yeah. Is anybody watching any good shows? I'm watching Glow Up. Oh, there's Nikau. All I had to do was say a show. Okay, here we go. Let's wait and see. Dun, 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 dun. Hi, Nikau.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Pretty. So thank you for joining. We can there's actually a lot of people going in. This is good. We can get started right away if that's okay with you, Nikau.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us today. My guest is Nikau Hindin, who is a contemporary art cloth. She is an indigenous artist in Aotearoa. So thank you for joining, Nikau. It's so nice to have you.
Thanks, Brenda.
Yeah, so we can just get started right away. Oh my gosh, there's so many people joining. We can get, sorry, it just like went up so high. We can just get started right away and talk about where you're from.
Yeah, sure. So, no te taitokirau a hau, no te hokianga whakapau karakia, ko ngā puhi, ko te raroa o ku iwi, ko ngai tūpoto tōku hapu, ko ngā huia tōku wahine rangatira. So I'm from the far north of the North Island. From the west coast, there's a harbour called the Hokianga, a really special and beautiful place. And I'm from the north side. That's where my whānau lives. And also we've been from there for many generations. And my iwi are Ngāpuhi and Te Raroa, and then my hapu, which is my sub-tribe, is my tūpoto.
Oh,
Yes, so that's
that introduction. Thank you for that introduction. So, what inspired you to create art, Nikau?
what inspires me to create art. I think I get most inspiration from the practices and knowledge systems and the ways of thinking of our tupuna, of our ancestors. So some of the knowledge systems that I kind of research and investigate in my practice. Well, the first one is ote, which is bark cloth. And so that's tapa cloth. And that's a process of transforming bark into cloth, and really beautiful soft cloth, which you can use for lots of things. And then the other knowledge system that I was first really interested in is navigation, and so our stars and where they rise and set on the horizon, and how we use our stars to locate ourselves in time and space. And then from there I kind of started thinking more about time and started researching about the maramataka, which is the Māori stellar lunar calendar, which is amazing thing. It's just another whole it's another whole way of thinking about time. So it's not the Gregorian calendar which rules our lives. It's
Mm-hmm.
in accordance with signs from nature, and it's like thousands of years old because it was brought from Te Moana Nui a Kiwa down to Aotearoa, and it's totally adaptable. So it changes with every like region. It's very regional specific, and yeah, it's really fascinating. So these are some of the things that really inspire my work. But so mostly, yeah, whakaaro Māori, mātauranga Māori, te kāpehu whetū, me te maramataka I tēnei wā. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that you're translating, so thank you for that. It's wonderful. So when you decided to pursue this art as a career, did you receive support from your family and your friends?
Yeah, I'm really lucky. My mum is a clothes designer. So she, early on, before I was even born, she was part of a collective of women who are creatives, and they kind of joined forces and um, had their own shop and made things and screen printed like tops and tights, and so that is like my genealogy, and like all that I know is strong self-employed creative women um, who have their own business, and so I've always been really supported by my mum and my family when it comes to art, which I feel like isn't that super common because most people kind of go along the conservative route, or like even at high school I knew some amazing artists, but they would study law or study and or like not choose to do art in their seventh form year, so um, yeah, so I was really lucky that I was really always supported, and I have the most amazing peer group um, who come to all my shows and who support me 100%, and they're amazing, and I don't think I would be able to do my practice without having these amazing women, and also my tane is really supportive, so yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I'm so grateful that you had a wonderful support system. So with that, we can segue into into your school. So talk to me about what schools you attended.
Yeah, so I went to Elam School of Fine Arts, which is an art school in Tāmaki Makaurau in Auckland, and it's a 4-year art school program. In New Zealand, you can do 2 degrees at the same time. So I did a Bachelor of Arts in Māori Studies and Film, TV, Media Studies, which I loved. And yeah, Elam is an amazing art school. It's very challenging, and it's very challenging if you're going straight from high school, which is most people's experience, is going
Mhm.
from high school into this art school context, and yeah, it's really hard. Conceptually,
Yeah.
everything that I thought I knew about art, um, yeah, crumbled. So it was pretty transformational time, and I think it's I learned how to think critically, think outside the box, really analyze my own art practice, but also other people's
Mhm.
practices. And we did lots of critiquing, which is a really rigorous and often quite painful process of analyzing and like pulling apart your work, which
Mhm.
is pretty hard and
Yeah.
quite hard for your mental health. And so, yeah, lots of people drop out of Elam pretty early on. Um, so yeah, but then I was really lucky. I did a year in Hawaii, so I did the 360-degree exchange program, and I came to Hawaii, and I really think that that year in Hawaii in my undergrad was like super transformational. That's where I first learned about ote, that Māori made ote. I learned how a little bit about beading kapa, and yeah, some just amazing. The Hawaiian Studies Department in Hawaii is really awesome. I just loved love the Hawaiian Studies department over there, and the teachers. So that was transformational for me. And then I came out of uni. I had 2 years. I actually
Mm-hmm.
worked in TV production.
Oh.
Yeah, which I think it's worth it. Hi, Afina. Yeah, TV production was really cool. I learned a lot. Really hard industry, but it was, it is what it is. And then I went and did my master's at UH. So I did a
Mm-hmm.
year, and I was a graduate assistant, and yeah, that was really interesting. I I'd say that I loved my cohort. I loved the people who I was doing the program with. I loved some of the tutors were good, but I think most of all, just being in Hawaii and being in the community, and finding teachers elsewhere is really important. And I think that goes for any art school experience. It's like, go to art school, use its resources available to you, but find your teachers in the community, that you're most you're part of, and like that's where you belong, and that's where you'll be supported, and that's where you'll see yourself as well, because often especially Indigenous people of colour go to universities and we're taught Western frameworks, and so you can feel really alienated. So it's important to find teachers that will serve you, and find role models who are like you, and pursue that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. This is all so good. And I am very grateful that you're sharing all of this. And I wanted to ask if you can talk a little bit about your experience in university in New Zealand, if you don't mind, your undergrad. And then if you could also talk about your experience in grad school at UH. And I remember taking some notes from when we were practicing. So there are some things that I would like for you to point out, and just in case that we don't, I'll just like be like, remember we spoke about this. But definitely the floor is all yours, so go for it.
Yeah, so art school, so undergrad at Elam is it's different from the art department at UH. I think
Mm-hmm.
because Elam is an art school, so maybe it's like a little bit more independent,
Mm-hmm.
whereas UH is an art department. So I think, I guess the main difference that I found between a New Zealand university and maybe like an American university is that in New Zealand they don't take a role, for example, like they're not going to check if you're present at class.
Yeah.
Much more independent, you have to take control of your own learning. Whereas when I was in Hawaii, I was really surprised that they take a role and they kind of treat you like high school students,
Mm-hmm.
which can be really good, which can be good and can be bad. I definitely, going into my master's, I was really not used to just how like maybe like suffocating they were, but that's that's
Mm-hmm.
what it is. But also, UH they do, like they have things like lockers for you, and they have like a gym that's free, that's like super flash, and they have all these other things that's way more like high school than at Auckland Uni, where you kind of like left on your own and you have to survive, which obviously
Yeah.
sets you up for a career where no one's going to kind of necessarily help you along. Yeah, it makes you
Mm-hmm.
responsible for your own stuff. um what were some other things that we talked about?
um
um
no, you're fine, you're fine. You were talking about how it was conceptually challenging
oh
in
yeah,
and then tense critiques and yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so Elam was very conceptually challenging, whereas I found UH much more traditional.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's like benefits in both, and also benefits in
Mm-hmm.
experiencing both those kinds of schools, because I think when I was at Elam, I got really, I felt really kind of at a loss, because I was like, wow, this is so conceptual, and I really can't see myself working in this way.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of feels a little bit like that's the only way you can make art, is to be really super conceptual. And then I went to UH, and obviously UH is connected to the States, and so I had access to like understanding that, you know, conceptual art isn't the only kind of art that you can make, and that there are other avenues. And so I found that I came back from UH, and yeah, I felt a lot more confident in my work. And I actually dropped out of Elam for a year
Oh.
and went to UH, because in my second year I stopped and I
Mm-hmm.
just did my Bachelor of Arts, because I
Right.
was finding it so difficult. And I think that's like quite normal, is that, yeah, like art school is really difficult, even especially if you're young and if you don't know who you are, because you're trying to work out who you are, you're so young, and they're challenging the work that you're creating, and that can be really vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I came back from UH, went back to Elam, and I got top of my third year semester, so top of my class, which was so crazy. If like a year ago I had I wasn't really, getting very good grades. I was kind of like struggling, or I wasn't being true to myself. It wasn't about the grades. I just wasn't making art that was true to me, and so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so when I came back, and I kind of from Hawaii, and I had a really grounding experience there, and so I kind of knew what I wanted to do and what I wanted to pursue, which was I wanted to be really grounded in te ao Māori. I wanted to make art that was in relation to plants. I wanted to make my own tools. I wanted to do things, the slow way. I wanted to um, take my time
Mm-hmm.
in the process. Like the process was really important um, to me, and so and I didn't really see that in my art school. And I
Mm-hmm.
think coming back from Hawaii, I was like, oh, I don't. It doesn't matter that I haven't seen this in other art school, and in my own art school. I know that it exists, and um, this is my pathway, and I'm going to pursue this. And once you have that, once you have that um, determination and commitment to your practice, it's very difficult for another person to challenge you,
Mm-hmm.
if you're so sure of your path. And so I was in a much more powerful position in my critiques, because it was like, no, you're not going to, challenge my cultural position. That's not even a discussion,
Mm-hmm.
because this is what I'm presenting you from this framework, from a te ao Māori perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and we can talk about the work as it is. And I'm confident in my work to the point where I will critique your critique of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a power dynamic that shifted when I came back from UH in my undergrad. But then when I was at UH, and I did have an amazing experience at UH. I was only there for 1 year. Um, the master's program is a 3-year program at the University of Hawaii, which was a pretty hard pill to swallow for me, because if I did my master's here in Aotearoa, it would only be a 1-year program.
Right.
So a 3-year
Big.
master's program is very long.
Yes.
Um, yeah. But also, what I found most difficult is that the critiques were not as valuable, and I felt like the um, the facilitators of the critique, they weren't broad enough. They came from a very narrow, and when I say narrow, I mean white, male, Western perspective, and they didn't really have access or even like any desire to be open to other cultural perspectives, and I found that really limiting. I was actually really surprised that it felt very traditional and very like Western traditional and very archaic,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, while some of my other classes were run by like Jamie, and she was super like progressive and super wide, um, knowledge base. Yeah, when we'd have critiques,
Mm-hmm.
it was very lacking, and so um, yeah, I just wasn't, for me, like as an artist, as a Māori artist in Hawaii, but one of the most important things to do is to acknowledge that you're a manuhiri, that you're a visitor on the land, on the whenua that you're standing on, and that you have to, well, obviously respect tangata whenua, which is the indigenous people of the land, to acknowledge them and to learn about where you are. Because for me, art making is about positionality. It's about
Yeah.
it's about knowing where you are, who you are in that moment, and creating from that point. So if you are a white male American artist creating in Hawaii, but not like acknowledging the land that you're on, then I just feel, and not even knowing the history of colonization there, or not even knowing the name of the valley, that you're working in, like you're. It's not even about like, oh, you're ignorant, you don't know that. It's about that you're missing out on all of this incredible and like all of this incredible knowledge that is present in your process, um, whether you're, I don't know, I feel like you need to acknowledge where your materials come from, you need to acknowledge the place that you're standing, and you need to be more aware, because that's what you are as an artist. You need to be aware, and give back to the environment that you're in, rather than just ignoring it and just making work. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing. I think everything you said is so, so powerful. And we talked about this. I don't really know a lot about the experience in New Zealand with the university, so I always learn a lot when you talk about it. So I'm very grateful that you shared it with me and everybody that's watching, and also your experience in UH as a grad student. Like I haven't experienced that either, so I'm really grateful for your honesty and what you talk about with the land, because I also feel that that's very, very, very important. So I appreciate you for that. And if we still have time, so if you're able to talk a little bit about opportunities that you had while you were in Elam and you could share a little bit about that, and then we can continue on with the questions if you're okay with that.
Yeah. Maybe can we do a different question? I'm trying to think of. I can't really think of that.
Yeah, no, of course. I remember we had trouble with this one as well, so no worries. So, the following question would be, what do you feel that school prepared you for? And that could be either with Elam or UH. So go for it.
Yeah. So art school doesn't necessarily prepare you to be a practicing artist,
Mm,
because art school helps you think conceptually. I hope that art school would kind of I feel like it kind of like removes you from um, society
mhm,
in a way that you can create work that can comment on what's happening, and like a removed sense, so that you can kind of see clearly. I don't know if that makes sense, but basically it kind of gives you absolute freedom in a certain context.
Mm-hmm.
So here's everyone else and here's you, and you're making work.
Yes.
So and that, I think that can be beneficial because you can just make the most wildest things, and it doesn't necessarily matter if your family might think you're crazy, but it's okay because you're at art school and you can experiment, you can go wild, and that's really awesome. That's an amazing, important time in your like conceptual development and your personal development as well, to have all of that freedom. What art school definitely didn't teach me is how to that there's an art industry, or like not an art industry, but there's people collect art, like that's a thing, and institutions collect artwork, like universities collect artwork. There's and how to oh well, we're very lucky in New Zealand. We have and a really all of the artists before me, if it wasn't for all the amazing Māori artists before me, I wouldn't be able to do what I do, because they've laid that path for me. And I kind of came back from Hawaii and like stepped right into that, and I felt really, really blessed. But I wasn't really prepared, or I didn't even know about that people want to buy your art. And so that's a real thing, because I think at Elam especially you learn it's very like anti like framing art, for example, and sticking it on the wall. So you don't really like make art to like have in the home context. You're making work to kind of like comment or impact on society, to make change, which is really fucking important. But you also need to sustain yourself. You need to be able to do the thing, for my case, make ote, and you need to be able to sustain that, because my practice with ote, it does give back because the process of it is slowing down. It's not, I make all my own pigments, I make my own cloth, I make my own tools, and all of those processes are like anti this very fast-paced, instant gratification society. So one of the things that I wasn't prepared for is how to price my work. So I went into Auckland Art Fair, which is a whole nother thing. Auckland art fairs are crazy in itself, and they're amazing. And also there's always two sides. But I priced my work so low, to the point where a collector just walked up to my work and was like, oh, I really love this, I want this one. And he didn't, like, I said how much it was, and he like didn't even blink or anything. Like, it wasn't even a thing, because I had priced my work too low. And that's actually very common, especially for Māori, is we price our work too low. We spend so much time doing this work. It's all handmade and harvested and grown from the whenua, from the land, and yet we don't price our work at what it's worth. So yeah, pricing the work is really important. Learning how to pay tax, learning how to be self-employed and run a business, because that's what it is. Learning how to, I didn't realize how much writing you did. So you do so much writing, and clarifying about your practice. It's constant. Kia ora, korua. So yeah, there's a whole side of being an artist that I definitely didn't. I actually learned. Only reason I'm aware of it is because my mum's self-employed. She's a creative. She makes things, and she sells things, and that's my kind of exposure to what that was comparison to what I'm doing now is creating art, and people are wanting it and figuring out systems to like make that happen, or doing shows and all of those things. So yeah, lots of things that were not taught to us, but that yeah, you just have to learn on the fly. But I really wanted like help others with this, and if anyone has any questions, yeah, I'm always keen to be like, how do I price this? I know how I'll be keen to help, because yeah, we just don't learn enough about that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You said so much, and I added more than the last time we talked, and I was like, yes, I didn't know about that either. So thank
Yeah.
you. You're educating me as well. And I also didn't want to forget that you felt unprepared for commission as well. I don't know if you want to say anything about that before we move on.
What did
Um,
you say? Sorry, it
oh,
glitched.
that you were not prepared for commission work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If you want to
How?
say anything, you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Well, just to be aware of that galleries take commission. They take 40%
Mhm.
commission. Some galleries take 50% commission. You have to build that into your to your price, and then there's tax on top of that. So which is like 25%. So at the end, you're getting less than 50% of your mahi. So of your work, less than 50%. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's really important to just know all the ins and outs. And then they might charge GST as well. So they might take GST out, which is, yeah, sorry, this is very New Zealand based, but I think you guys, most of our prices have GST inbuilt, whereas you guys do the tax at the end. You know how when you buy something you think it's $1 and then it's 20, then it's like
Mhm.
$1.13. Well,
Mhm.
that's thing. I think that's GST, and
Mhm.
ours is built into the price. But anyway, that's another whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. No, no. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I'm learning so much today. Thank you. So with all of this amazing share, thank you. We can go toward the next thing, which is talking about your art, and you can share
Oh yeah,
anything. Know that we spoke that you don't really have any art pieces with you, so but you have your
yeah,
tools. So if you want to talk about your tools, please do, because I love when you speak about your tools. And then if it's okay with you, I took some screenshots from your work. So maybe I took screenshots of 3 pieces that you did. So maybe we could talk about it after you're done sharing with us your
yeah,
tool. That would be wonderful.
yeah, for sure. I'll just really quickly go through my tools. These are this is my favorite beater. This is my first beater that I ever made, and it's so specific to my grip.
Mm-hmm.
I I scrape the handle with pippy shells. This is a scallop shell, but with a really sharp pippy shell to reduce the handle. And then
Mm-hmm.
I did the grooves with shark's teeth.
Oh wow. Mm-hmm.
And so this was my first beater and I still use it. Um, and that's to beat the cloth.
Mm-hmm.
This is my shell that I use. I've just done a rough tape at the bottom. Um, oh, trying to find the other one. This is my other shell,
Oh,
beautiful
it's so
shell. This was
pretty.
gifted to me by my kumu, Auntie Berna.
Mhm.
And this is, yeah, these two are actually super important for scraping and cleaning the fibre
Mhm.
of it. And then this is like a little tiny little piece.
Mhm.
So this is after the first beat. This is kind of the texture.
Mhm.
This is ote, little piece of Aotearoa ote. And then after, I soak this again, and then I rebeat it with finer grooves, and then I kind of get this little textured.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so this is a bit more like paper, like
Mhm.
flexible paper. And then I have a few little pieces.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing this. I love it.
These,
Thank
yeah, so
you.
these I kind of have a few. I beat pieces out, and then I have a few that I kind of plan for.
Uh-huh.
Um, that I don't necessarily paint on straight away. because for me, like, this process of making the cloth is just as important as the process of painting and making the doing the marks. So yeah, and also, so like the size really depends on the plant, and then the size, the shape of the piece influences the marks, influence what I put on it, you know. So yeah, it's all relative.
Yes. No, thank you. Oh, I love that you showed everything. Thank you so much. And I hope I picked okay piece. I mean, all your work is beautiful, but let me see if I can zoom in. And you can share a little bit about this piece. I don't know if I
Oh
can.
yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
hold it up
so
for a
so these pieces are called te pare or hine raumati, and then the black one is te pare or hine takurua, and hine raumati is the is the goddess, and te pare is the crown or the pare, which is like a lei po'o. Yeah, what's the English word? It's kind of one of the ones you wear, like the ones you wear around your head, and that's the summer
oh,
solstice and the winter solstice, and so those are the stars rising and setting on the summer and winter solstice. Yeah, and so those are kind of
I'll
about
show you.
time,
Okay.
and yeah, the summer and winter.
Thank you. And then I really like this new project that you're working on. I don't know if it has any meaning, but I even told you I was like, this is gonna be a
Oh
beautiful project.
yeah. So that was a really awesome project I did with Jade. Well, Jade Townsend was the curator for this, and I was actually wanting to make some smaller pieces that you could touch, because like with the ote, it's really delicate, and I prefer that people don't touch the pieces on the wall because they're really delicate. But these ones, you can hold in your hand and you can move them around, and that was the really cool thing about the show. It was in a beautiful space, a mobile space, and you entered the space and had an exchange with Jane, and you could move the pieces all around to wherever you wanted to be. And so and it was about friendship and connection, and so I felt like those pieces, that material aspect of the pieces, was really suited the kind of friendship aspect of the show. And also, so these pieces I gifted. These are pieces that I won't sell. So these are pieces that will only be for gifts, if you know what I mean. So they kind of, so that they exist in a realm outside of capitalism. They are for exchange and for deepening relationships, and for as a like a gesture of offering. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's
And
those works.
thank you. And so how long did the winter and summer how long did that take to complete before I show the last view?
They take a while. It's really hard to calculate because I kind of do everything in stages. Like I might
Mhm,
beat out all of these, which are called mo'o in the
mhm.
Hawaiian language, which is like the in-between state, and then I'll re-soak. And so, but might have like 10 of these that I do at the same time,
Oh, I
and
see.
then I'll, a few months later, I'll come along and be like, oh yeah, these two are twin. Like these two can go
Mhm.
together. I'll soak them together. They sit and they soak, and then
Yeah.
I pull them out and then I beat them, and yeah, so a few months, a few
Mhm.
months. Um, the the research takes a while to research when the stars rise and set.
Mhm.
That's always like a really um, cool process, but it's very much like a study side, a quiet study side where I'm recording times, and yeah, like also um, learning. It's like a
Mhm.
learning time, research time for me.
Yeah, thank you. And then I'm going to share the last few just so so we're able to answer the rest of the questions and then leave it open for the audience because I saw that somebody asked the question already. I haven't looked at it yet, but
Oh,
I don't want the question yet. So I just want to make sure we have time for the audience to ask questions. So this is the last photo I took of your work. So if you could talk about
yeah, cool.
which
So
whichever one you.
yeah, interestingly, the middle one is the spring equinox, and then the black one is the autumn equinox, and then the one
Oh,
on the side is Taparau,
mhm,
which is going to my friend, which is really exciting. Um, and yeah, actually, so Taparau is a really interesting piece. Taparau for me means many triangles.
mhm,
Um, And for me, the triangle is like a really important form. And actually, in this case, it's about the female element and
mhm,
the transformational ability of the feminine.
mhm,
And so, this piece, there's only um, triangles in the piece, and so, but wow, yeah, but the diversity of their form is really beautiful, and they come from it actually talks about the process that and the kind of the genealogy of my process, which I learned from, like, I learned the Samoan method, I learned the Hawaiian method, and then I've kind of like created um, what I think is like the Maori method, and so it
mhm.
speaks about all of that transformation of process, and then the transformation of the cloth as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Do you want to talk about the other two? You're more than welcome to. I just.
Yeah, no, I think the other two is very similar because I'm
Mhm,
just talking about the sun. The
mhm,
sun moves around a lot.
mhm.
So 23 degrees north in the in the summer, and oh no, in the winter, and 23 degrees north in the south in the summer. For you guys, it's the opposite, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then in the equinox it's smack bang rising exactly due east, and so that's kind of what that talks about is those really like and we have an amazing story of Maui slowing down the sun, and in Hawaii he slows down the sun so um, his mum can dry her kapa, because Hina is the first copper maker, one of the first
Mhm.
copper makers, and so he slows down the sun for her. But we say um, the slowing down of the sun is about the summer days getting longer, and then
Mhm.
he loosens his grip, and the days get shorter. So it's
Mhm.
that fluctuation.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nico, for talking about all of this. I hope everyone's enjoying it. I'm really enjoying you talking about your work.
Oh, me too. I
Um,
hope you value.
yeah, I love it. And so, yeah, so I just want to get to my last question so the audience can ask some because I don't want to lose time. So, my following question for you, and thank you again for sharing about your work, is how do you feel being a female artist? And this is a question that we talked about. You can, if you've ever felt not supported or if you've ever been harassed for being a female artist or just anything you feel that you want to say about that, you're more than welcome to share.
Yeah. Um, I think it's more um, just observations. Like the world is very set up for men to make work that is big, and so so I think I just have to say, just so the best example of an amazing collective of women artists is Mataho Collective, and they're weavers, and they make, speaking of scale, they make enormous weavings that is out of kind of, you know, repurposed materials, and they're huge and they take up a lot of space, and they they are a collective of women. They don't they always refer to themselves as Mataho Collective. They make with their hands together, and they do these processes like weaving and fiber arts, which are usually kind of associated with women's art. But I think like the scale and the dominance of the work, it's like, you know, we're Indigenous wahine, Māori, we are here to take up space in your museum.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have arrived, and I think like they're really important, and like they're leaders in that space of kind of countering the really male dominated art space. I think what's most difficult is that the art world likes to put women in boxes, and typically devalues, for example, like craft or those kinds of processes that they associate with femininity, and that I feel like that is changing as our as you know, society is becoming more aware and hopefully advancing, as our value system changes. So yeah, I don't, for me, I try to just make my work, and you know, people can call me a craft artist, or people can call me like, you know, a fiber artist, or but that's not, you know, I'm a Māori artist and I'm a bark cloth maker, and that's who I am. It doesn't matter what anybody else calls me. It really means nothing as long as I know who I am, and what I do, and as long as I see value in my process, as long as I feel like I'm contributing back to my community. Those are the things that are really important, as opposed to, you know, the labels that I'm given. Yeah, and so it's just about categorizing, and in Kao Māori, in our perspective, you know, art, there is no specific word for like art. Art is tool, art is spirituality, art is conversation, art is community, art is relationships, art is you know, is the ocean, art is plants. Art is everything, and we don't have these like defining rules about what it looks like or what it should be, and that's my position, and I'm cool with that. And so any, yeah, if other people want to put me in a box, that's fine, that's cool for them, but that's, you know.
Thank you, Nikau. I really appreciate that answer a lot. And my second to last question is, how are you taking care of yourself physically and emotionally during this time?
Oh, this is really important. This is a challenging time. It's a time of you know, unpredictability, and my biggest thing, and I think my like life motto, is to be kind to yourself, to kind of eliminate negative self chatter, about who you are and about your body and about
Mm-hmm.
what you should be doing or what you shouldn't be doing, like
Mm-hmm.
attaching morality to food, attaching expectations to things. I think if you can keep the conversation in your head about yourself light, loving, and accepting, um, then I feel like your outward expression or your outward experience of the world will be much more pleasant. um, I think, just taking it easy, being kind to yourself, accepting, if you need to have rest, have a rest. If you feel like going for a walk, go for a walk. If you feel like having an ice cream, have an ice cream, and be
Yeah.
all good with it. You know, you don't get to go for a walk that day. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you, Nico. And with that, my last question is, do you have any advice you would like to give to artists?
yeah. I have lots of advice, but I'll try and think of the one thing that is most valuable. Um, I think I think I think from that, like the starting point is find your materials. So find a material that you are really obsessed with and love working with. That is like kind of transformational, expansive. That you can, like a plant, become really obsessed with a plant, um, or or concrete. What are the things that you can do to concrete, that you can move it, that you can use it in your practice. um, and then exploring all the ways that you can say what you want to say with it, um, through your process. So that's kind of what I feel like is is just like keep it simple, keep it really simple, and be honest. Yeah, be honest with what you like and make work that's like honest to your values. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nico. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, good.
You're awesome. We have a few minutes for questions, so
Yeah.
let me see. There's one from Amy Ramika. I think I can show it. Yeah. As a young Māori
Oh,
looking at going to Elam, do you recommend it, especially with developing your own unique style? Thank you so much for that question. Oh, and then the questions are coming. So
yeah, cool. Okay.
we can answer
Um,
this and then the following.
yeah, so kia ora, Amy. Um, I think England has changed a lot since I was there, and there is a lot more wraparound support for Māori, um, and there are tuakana who are there who are awesome. Um, so I definitely wouldn't discourage you from going to Elam, but just really be prepared for the kind of like it's really, you can get really down, like when because the critique system, which is Western, the critique system of analyzing your work, that's like inescapable. It has a lot of value, but it also is really hard to handle. And like just like look after yourself. And like there's so many times where you'll come out, well, I've cried after critiques. I felt really shit about myself after critiques, and that's just like kind of how it is, and that's really sucks. And I don't know. For me, I like would like to find alternative ways of um, why should we have to go through that traumatic experience in order
Yeah.
to become a good artist? Well, I don't think you do necessarily have to go through that, but that is what the system is at the moment. So So just kind of be prepared for that, and look after yourself, and find other artists like are really supportive of you, and just be sometimes it's like the more sure of your own mahi that you are, the less shit you're gonna get. So just try and be like confident and like grounded, and do your research and work really hard. It's not easy. It's really hard. It's really hard, but it's good, especially if you really want to be an artist in Aotearoa. Elam is probably the best place to go.
Thank you, Nikau. And then the next question is, do you know of any good books or resources for our navigation? That's 100%. A good question.
Okay, so life hack, one of there's lots. Hawaii Rising is Nainoa Thompson's like kind of like a little biography about his preparing for his the navigation from Hawaii down to Tahiti. So that's a really good book. Another good book, or just Google, if you go to the Hokulea website and you Google Hokulea Star Compass or Hokulea Star Lines, there's a lot of information which is actually in their crew manual. All of those star lines where they explain the 4 different star lines, those are in the Hokulea crew manual, and that's available and accessible to you online. Then as far as Aotearoa, I think there are wānanga that happen, and like piripi teachers and Jacko teachers, and if you just connect up with whatever waka is in your community, so like for example, if you're in Tauranga, there's Ngahiraka. If you're here in the Tairawhiti, there's Tairawhiti waka. If you're in Tāmaki Makaurau in Auckland, there's Honui, and they do sailing and voyaging, and they do sail training and things like that. If you're in Hawaii, become a volunteer for Hokulea, which is totally doable. You just got to turn up to the dry dock and don't leave. So yeah, if you're in the islands, like if you're in Rarotonga, there's Marumaruatua, so there's all the different waka, and through the waka communities you'll eventually have access to like the navigation corridor. And then if you need, just ask me a question and I can answer.
Thank you, Nikau. I think we have time for these last 2 questions and maybe one more. We'll see. I'm scared. I hope Instagram doesn't stop. Who are some of your favorite Indigenous artists that you follow? Why? That's a good question.
I just to like, of course, all of our Māori artists, but just like a non-Māori artist is Jeffrey Gibson, who is amazing, and he's 100% my idol. He is Native American, and his Instagram is awesome. And I think he's like originally a painter, but he just does all these amazing kind of beaded but also painted works with text sometimes, and he does costumes, and he really fills spaces. He's the most incredible artist. I just love him. But who are some favorite other? So
what is your process when deciding markings on Aote?
So that's a really great question. That's a huge question. So firstly, the genealogy of my mark making comes from Tāniko, Whaturaranga, Kowhai, or our sort of our Kowhai patterns. What already exists, and so my work comes from there. But in terms of my star maps, I draw from kind of almost like the measurements of of the environment of the stars. Oh, kia ora. So, yeah, so I they come from the taiao, the marks, yeah, for me, from the environment, from what we see, which I think is, very typical of how our tupuna made their patterns as well, is drawing from the patterns that we see in the land, or in the ocean or in the wind. Or, yeah, I try and speak to my observations.
Thank you so much for these questions and for everybody who asked, and thank you for answering them, Nico. I really wish we had more questions, but I feel like it's gonna cut us off soon, unfortunately.
Thank you for listening. E te
Yes.
whānau ia nā rā te mihi kia koutou, mō tō o taringa, mō o pātai, and nei rā te mihi kia koe, Brenda. Thank you so much for having me and for giving me time on your and space to answer these questions. It's been really enjoyable, and I hope people have found value in this conversation. And I think that, Brenda, you're bringing up really important things that, like, I haven't really even considered sometimes, and just making other people aware of the experience of art school, which I think isn't really spoken about a lot and needs to be spoken about, because we need to hold these institutions accountable for the art that comes out of them. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, and thank you. Thank you for sharing and being so open, and everybody else for listening, and it's just been so wonderful. So thank you so and I wish we had more time, but it's okay. But thank you so much, and thank you
Okay.
everybody. And anybody miss it, I'll just post it on my story, and I'll share it with you as well.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Ka kite.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Ka kite.